Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Free Policy Advisory Services for an Inclusive Green Economy. My name is Ben Simmons, head of the Green Growth Knowledge Platform. This webinar is the first in a series of 5 webinars that will be organized by the GGKP and the ICI Project Green Economy Transformation. The project is funded by the German Ministry of Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety, BMU, through its International Climate Initiative, ICI, and is being implemented jointly by GIZ and UN Environment in collaboration with the Partnership for Action on Green Economy and a number of other organizations. In 2015, as you all will no doubt recall, governments adopted a landmark agenda to end poverty and pursue a sustainable future by 2030. Shortly thereafter, governments followed up with the signing of the Paris Climate Agreement, requiring all countries to make significant commitments to address climate change. Since then, governments, national institutions, and individuals have turned their attention from the aspirations in those agreements to the very hard work of translating those agreements to on-the-ground actions and change. We are hoping with today's webinar, the Green Economy Transformation Project will be able to support the work of those who are actively driving change processes forward and introduce available expertise and support services that can be accessed free of charge. What is clear is that the time for unprecedented collaboration and action is now. And importantly, there has never been more support freely available for those pursuing sustainable development objectives. Before introducing the moderator for today's event, I'd like to highlight a few logistical items. First, we strongly encourage participants to raise questions throughout the webinar. This can be done by typing your question into the chat box, which can be found on the right-hand side of the webinar dashboard. Please ask hard questions. We love questions about real-world challenges that you're facing on the ground. We have the experts here. It'd be great to challenge them. After the webinar, we will be circulating a 5-minute survey. We kindly request that you take the time to complete it. These surveys provide us with valuable feedback that help shape our future webinars. Of course, if you have any technical issues, please don't hesitate to email us at contact@ggkp.org, and that's contact, C-O-N-T-A-C-T, @ggkp.org. And we'll help you troubleshoot any challenges you might be facing with the software. Finally, please note that all of the presentations you see here, as well as a recording of the webinar, will be available on the GGKP website shortly after the webinar. So without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's event, Orestes Anastasia, who heads the Office of Thought Leadership at the Global Green Growth Institute. Orestes has a long career that spans more than 20 years, developing and overseeing programs and initiatives addressing a variety of issues: climate change, economic development, sustainable development. And given that GGGI, the Global Green Growth Institute, is one of the leading providers of green growth advisory services for countries throughout the world, I can think of no one better suited to take on this role of today's moderator. So Orestes, I am absolutely delighted to welcome you to today's webinar, and it is my great pleasure to turn the webinar over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben, for the kind introduction. Thank you. And it's a great pleasure to join everyone from the Global Green Growth Institute, where I'm sitting in our headquarters here in Seoul in Korea. And we are, as Ben was referencing, very dedicated to all of these issues and to building up the base of support that is so important for moving the agenda forward, the green growth agenda and the green economy agenda. So allow me to welcome you again to today's webinar, where again we are going to be introducing a number of free services that are available to support this very important transition to a green economy. I'm going to read through some of those and then talk a little bit about how we're going to proceed with the webinar. So the variety of services that we plan to cover include the GGKP Expert Connect service, the SDG Helpdesk, the Climate Helpdesk, which is supported through the NDC Support Cluster, the Climate and Technology Center and Networks, or CTCN Technical Assistance Service, the Clean Energy Solutions Center Ask an Expert service, and the Climate and Clean Air Coalition's Expert Assistance Service. Quite an array of expertise. We are also hoping to hear from a government agency representative, Samara Acevedo, who, if she can connect with us in time, will be sharing her user experience with the Remote Expert Assistance on LEDs, or REAL service, providing a case study from Nariño. Now, one key point I'd like to make as we kick this off is that a number of organizations who are all working together to promote green growth or green economy solutions, including GGGI, GIZ, the GGKP, and quite a few others, we're all working harder to coordinate our efforts more closely. And thus, a webinar just like this is exactly in line with that ambition of providing more focused and coordinated support that provides a wide range of tools and expertise to make sure that it can be delivered as required. We should note that these services are not exclusive to policymakers either. It's very important to consider that they are available to policy advisors and supporting technical institutions quite broadly. Now, the process for requesting assistance is often very similar to that of requesting support for each of these services across the board. Prospective users would simply contact the service through the respective service's website or by phone or email with a policy question, and the service will then connect the user with an expert who will work with that user to develop a viable solution, plan, or strategy that is fitting for the user's local context. So essentially, it shouldn't be that difficult to find the expertise. It's a matter of doing maybe a little more than clicking a couple of buttons or making a phone call, sending an email. The services are also quite flexible in the way that they're set up. Users can reach out with a very clearly defined policy need or with a general idea of what policy direction a user would like to take, and the network of services will draw from its global network of experts to connect users with the right individual, the right expert who can provide that right kind of support. So, having given that overview, let me then turn right away to start our panel of speakers who will be talking about each of these services. And let me begin with our first presenter, Mr. Inwoo Jung, who leads country engagement activities for the Green Growth Knowledge Partnership, and will introduce us to the Green Growth Expert Connect service.
Great, thank you, Orestes. Hello, everyone. It is an honor to be speaking alongside colleagues who are working on the similar initiatives. I'm Inwoo Jung, a manager of the Green Growth Expert Connect service. That is a joint initiative of the Green Growth Knowledge Platform as well as the Partnership for Action on Green Economy, with the generous support of the German Federal Ministry of Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety. And thank you once again, Orestes, for that very informative overview of many of these services. And yes, we are a demand-driven service, and you can contact us through our website at ggkp.org. Well, we have a roster of experts that is on our Expert Connect website, and this is an opportunity for experts to be themselves and do what they do best and impact policy processes to accelerate green growth. Experts who are interested join our roster by contacting us and then filling in a simple form. And once they are in the roster, when demand and request comes in for expert services, we often contact experts based on their expertise. And experts who are available to help at that very present moment are enlisted, and we connect the dots. And once again, I do reiterate that this is a very good opportunity to make meaningful change for green growth in many shapes and forms. Now, to our clients who are comprised of policymakers, policy advisors, as well as technical institutes that support policy processes, we do welcome really any request that will lead to a policy change or will inform policy for accelerating green growth. It is usually the best when there is a clear need, which will allow us to identify an expert right away for the need that you're coming to us with. But we have learned that sometimes it's not just about having a need filled, but it is also about trying to identify the correct need, and therefore we also are very comfortable responding to any request to help identify the need. And we are flexible in the way that we help, because we do have a very different expertise that is represented, and a wide range of expertise across not only our expert roster but our knowledge partnership as well. Now, and we do help with a lot of different needs, because they do come in any shape or form. We have helped with drafting and reviewing policy and policy planning documents, including things such as capacity building activities, workshops with government and technical institutions, as well as localization of policy through review of a policy document or a technical document in a local language that may not be widely read. And I just want to introduce one case to all of the audiences, because of its significance. Here is one case of an Expert Connect story that is not just the story of our own service, but it's also a story of collaboration. Because at this point, some of you may be asking, well, what if I have such a specific need or such a different need from rest of the other clients that you may not have an expert at that moment? Well, the answer is we do collaborate across the different initiatives, including many of the ones that you will hear from today. And in this specific case, we have received a request through the Partnership for Action on Green Economy to come up with a new national construction policy for Mongolia. And at the time, we reached out to our friends at Let's GP, as well as the CTCN, who offer similar services, who will be speaking later today. And Constant van Ursula, who was enlisted with the help of Let's GP and CTCN, has worked to see the development of this policy from the very beginning to the end by developing and delivering capacity building workshop in the capital, aimed at the people, including civil servants, who will be working on this policy, as well as offering constant guidance throughout the drafting of this National Green Construction Policy. And we are very proud to say this National Green Construction Policy was recently approved by the Mongolian government earlier this year. And as a result of this policy, we expect the buildings in Mongolia to have a much higher energy efficiency rating, and which will result in reducing building heat losses by more than 20% by 2020 and by 40% by 2030. So you can see how our services are making impact on the ground and working together to really help countries achieve green growth. And I am happy to answer any questions at the end, as will many of my colleagues in today's panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Inwoo. That was excellent. Nice, concise overview, and a really a good example, a solid example of how the Expert Connect service is actually leading to practical support for governments and potentially other stakeholders. With that, thank you very much again. Let me then turn to the next presenter, who is Ursula Becker, who also goes by the name Ulla. She is project director at the German Corporation for International Cooperation, also known to many as GIZ. Ursula has over 20 years of experience in international cooperation for sustainable development, playing different roles on various assignments, mainly in China. Ursula will be presenting on the SDG Helpdesk. And before I turn immediately to Ursula, let me simply say that if there are any questions that come up during a specific presentation, we will receive them in the chat box. Otherwise, please hold your questions to the very end, where we will still have time for open Q&A. But if there are any burning questions, then of course we can respond to them if there's time available. Thanks. Let me hand it over to you, Ursula. Thank you. Yeah, Ursula, we're having difficulty hearing you at the moment.
Hello?
I'm not sure.
Sorry.
Yep.
I'm currently still struggling with putting up the presentation, to be honest. I'm very sorry for that. Anyway, I will, because...
We can see the presentation though.
You can? Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
it's in sort of a display mode, but now it's okay.
It's coming back. It's coming back.
It's back.
Right. So, you have it?
Yeah, we're seeing it in the working mode. I think
Right.
if you click on,
So,
yeah.
oh man. Let me just, you should see it now, correct, right?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for this opportunity to introduce our services. Let me first just briefly introduce what we do in our project. So our activities are based on the adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And as you know, 4 years after the adoption, all recently published reports such as the GEO6 and the IPPC, but also the EPBES report made it very, very clear that so far the implementation of the 2030 Agenda, the IG targets and the national determined contributions set by the countries based on the Paris Agreement are all pretty much lagging behind. So the urgency, I think, is clear for every one of us. It's very obvious that we will have to speed up the implementation, that we have to maximize the existing impacts and have to deal with the scattered resources we have, and we also will have to ensure that policy coherence is in a better mode to make sure that we can reach that transformation we are all aiming for. So to foster this establishment of robust and transparent review processes in regards to the agenda and also to the effective implementation of the agenda, the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety, so the same commissioning body which also commissioned the project of GET, which gives us a chance for this webinar today, had commissioned another project, my project, to have support on a global level. The project is also funded by the International Climate Initiative, and it currently runs, and that is interesting still, until May of 2022. So our services which we can provide are in the moment limited to that duration, but we hope that we will also be able to offer these services, of course, in the future for such a little bit longer. So besides aiming at voluntary national review processes and follow-up actions, we have a specific focus on helping for the SDG implementation, and for that the project set up a kind of help desk. So on this help desk, please let me just focus in the next few minutes. So our help desk is working very much demand driven. So you are in the request position to ask us for support. We should achieve a support within the next let's say remaining 4 years in about 5 countries. So focusing on 2 main target groups. One target group is our commissioning ministry. So in that regards, we provide them with policy papers, with analysis, strategy development, but also we organize dialogue formats to international stakeholders, but also with within Germany to foster the implementation and to make aware of the urgency that the agenda has to be implemented in a faster way to being able to achieve the so outset results. On the other hand, and that is of greater relevance to all the audience, of course, is that we seek support for the we seek support for the stakeholders. You are the ones who should approach us. So we would like to help you to implement the SDG implementation in countries. And for these countries, we set up a specific scope. So we would like to collaborate together in India, in China, in Vietnam, Indonesia, Argentina, Brazil, Costa Rica, Colombia, and South Africa. These are our focus countries so far.
Ursula,
what do we do? Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we can see your presentation, but it doesn't look like you're moving ahead with any of the slides.
I did.
If you plan to show some of the slides, okay.
Oh, then.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's an issue, but maybe.
Does it now work?
Yeah, we're still seeing the original. It's like you're working on your desktop without it in presentation mode, and it's only on the first
in presentation mode. Oh no, what a pity. Let me check. But it should be in presentation mode. Okay, well.
Okay, it seems that one of the organizers will be taking over the slides and get to them there.
Yeah,
so
that would be great.
Yeah.
So sorry, but I have everything. It looks like okay on my computer.
Okay, we can all see your slide. It looks like it's a slide now on the adoption of the 2030 agenda. And if you can tell Jessica which slide to proceed to, then you can indicate
slide number 4, please. Yeah, right. There you can see the Helpdesk function. So as I said, like we have demand-driven requests. So you are the ones in the driver's seat, and we are basically acting on your demand. I also said like commissioning bodies is one of the supporting target groups we work with. On the other hand, and that is the relevant part, we seek for stakeholders to approach us, and specifically, we would like to collaborate together with the main countries like India, China, Vietnam, Indonesia, Argentina, Brazil, Costa Rica, Colombia, and South Africa. So what kind of service do we offer to our partnering countries and to the audience or to persons who approach us? That is basically we or in the past, we offered services as compilation of guidelines, guiding documents on how to implement SDGs in a concise way, thinking and also about the NDC implementation, how to link these, how to have synergies, how to utilize these synergies to best leverage the existing resources. We do have a collection of good practices in SDG relevant areas, for example, on the indicators development, on tools identification for linkages between different SDGs and also between SDGs and NDC implementation. So we can advise you what kind of tools are probably the best tool for you if you're thinking about investigating in such an exercise, to find leverage points and to find entry points in your countries on how to boost the implementation of the goals. So that is one thing. Another thing is, for example, we are already organized some study trips, some technical exchange between SDG and environmental statistical offices in Germany and Europe. This we also can, of course, provide to partnering countries and representatives of the relevant statistical or environmental statistical offices for these countries. Besides, for example, high-level dialogues, we are interested in engaging with more and more countries in regards to SDGs. What are we doing in there? Well, we could tackle specific aspects and see in which way we can find key messages to also bring and broadcast them into the international discussion. What else was on our mind last year? Well, we engaged in policy briefs for policy coherence. We elaborated some video materials on synergetic implementation of adaptation to climate change, Sendai framework, and SDGs. And we are also about to start drafting a guideline with German good practices on policy coherence between these different global agendas. As you can see, our focus of service is clearly on supporting vertical and horizontal policy coherence. We could support you in identifying the best entry points and utilizing the synergies to boost the implementation and to come up with ideas on how to best utilize the existing resources and how to communicate the benefits in the best way, that not only the environmental ministries or environmental partners, but also other partners always can click and link to what you do. Slide number 5 will show you in a way in which way you can engage with us. So in the first step, we would like to receive your request for support. That is something where you could simply describe the situation you have and what kind of objective you are looking forward, what kind of service you would like to see or receive from us. Then we will get in touch with you, of course, to see whether we can fulfill this kind of demand, whether there is a chance to collaborate directly. If not, then we may link you to other partners within the GIZ, but also to other partners we know within the overall network. And last but not least, we will deliver then the services based on a schedule which we will jointly elaborate with you. And after the implementation of joint activities, we then, because we work with public funding, would also engage in impact monitoring activities, in which way we would also create a kind of benefit for you, because that will also allow you to have a better result-based let's say overview about if the implementation of the activities had been useful to you or not. So that was in short what we can offer. I'm very, very sorry and would like to apologize for all this trouble with the presentation, so whatever, but I hope that it still was interesting to see the services. So if you would briefly just click to slide number 6, because there you will find our contacts. Currently, we are a rather small team, so only 2 persons here on the list to contact, but I'm looking forward to enhance the team also based on the amount of the regards with international interactions we have. And then I thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to more specific questions in the afterwards. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Ursula. You still managed to provide quite an overview, which I think was very valuable. And so I wouldn't worry too much about the actual presentation. I believe all the materials will be available to the webinar participants afterwards. I will note that we are receiving quite a few questions in the chat box, which is excellent. And hopefully we'll be able to have enough time to respond to all of them. I noticed that some of the speakers are already, well, Inwu so far is responding to some of these already. So that actually will help get some answers for those questions right away. Let me now, since we're we're on a very tight schedule, you might say. Let me now happily turn to Paulina Rudnicka, who serves as an advisor with the LEDS Global Partnership and is coordinating the Climate Helpdesk, which is supported by the NDC Support Cluster. Paulina is currently interested in climate change related topics and focuses on a regional level in Asia, Eastern Europe, and Eurasia. And without further ado, I think we're all very interested in learning more about the Climate Helpdesk. So over to you, Paulina.
And good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
And can you see my presentation? Okay, then I will just start here. Thank you very much, GGKP, for organizing the seminar and for the opportunity to present the Climate Helpdesk. Just a second. I have to put this on the side. So the Climate Helpdesk is a joint effort of 3 initiatives, such as LEDS Global Partnership, as you can see in the bottom, the NDC Support Cluster, and also the Partnership on Transparency in the Paris Agreement. And it consists of 3 support services, which are already well established and hopefully well known, such as NDC Helpdesk, the remote expert assistance on LEDS, as well as the ad hoc facility of the PATPA. And those 3 services decided to merge and join the forces in order to better provide the service for the countries, also to expand the expert database, and also to expand the topics that we can provide help to, and also to facilitate one entry point for the request. Just a second. As you can see here, the Climate Helpdesk consists of 2 branches. So on the one hand, we have the transparency, and we are able to respond or provide services to requests related to transparency issues. And on the other hand, we are happy to support countries with the design and implementation on NDC, LEDS, long-term strategies. I would like to also mention that we closely cooperate with NDC Partnership. We exchange knowledge product. Sometimes we work together on some country requests. So what we actually do, we provide front-end technical assistance. It's demand-driven, so the country send us the request, and it's of course free of charge. Mainly is limited up to 1 week of expert work. So if a country sends more than 1 request, each request, we will be able to provide an expert work up to 1 week. And it's available for developing country governments, representatives, also subnational governments, actors, but also to NGOs or consultants which work directly with developing country governments. And if you would like to submit the request, since at this point the merge is not completed yet, I would like to invite you to use one of these links which you see in the presentation and fill out the form. Or also you can send an email to me, and at the end of the presentation you will see my email address. So there are several ways of sending a request. Later in summer we will have one entry gate. As you see here, there are like some examples which the Climate Helpdesk provide. So what we do, we provide expert guidance. We work closely with national and international experts, and they review some climate-related policies, some plans and programs. For example, in Bangladesh, the expert helped to develop the framework for the net metering policy. And also, I think in Jamaica, the Helpdesk provide the guidance on national bioenergy policy. We also share studies, analysis, and reports. So in general, we have like knowledge projects which we are very happy to share with the countries. We also have a best practices database, and we are happy also to provide lessons learned from other countries. We exchange, we we organize an exchange between countries. For example, we provided exchange between Ghana and Nigeria on mini-grid. And we work closely with other organizations which also have this kind of support services. And we do matchmaking in case we are not able to answer to the request. So the ad hoc facility of PATPA responds to all requests related to transparency broadly. It provides support for the countries for the preparation of BURs, but also help with establishing a sustainable MRV system. And it's mainly available for African country, LDCs and CIS countries. One single request is limited to 30,000 euro. And in the past, there were, of course, a lot of activities that the ad hoc facility provided. And some examples was, for example, the ad hoc facility provided a review of greenhouse gas inventory for specific sectors, also help countries to submit their first BUR, and ad hoc facility also provide the capacity building workshops and mainly for the national staff and expert. And recently there have been 2 workshops, one in Uganda in May, and also another workshop in Indonesia, which took place in, I think, in April. Yes, we can also learn a little bit more about the ad hoc facility and PATPA by visiting the links. And if you'd like to send a request, then you see below their contact. And this is actually my last slide. So if you have any questions, you're very happy to send your request to my email address. And you are happy also to visit our initiatives, which you have the links here on this page. And I'm looking forward to the conversation. My colleague also Anita will join and will also be happy to answer your questions. And I will hand over now to Samara, which has a very interesting case study on Nariño, to which Let's GP real service contributed to. So thank you very much.
Hi, can you hear me?
Samara, go ahead, please. We can hear you and we can see your presentation. Welcome to the webinar.
Okay. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you for inviting to talk about Nariño. And okay. So I'm Xiomi, I'm from Colombia. I work in Nariño. So first, let me tell you where Nariño is. Nariño is just in the south of Colombia, in the border with Ecuador, and also it's border with the Pacific Ocean. And it's a territory full of diversity in cultural, but also in ecologic terms. Nariño has more than 1 million people, 64 municipalities. Currently, all these 64 municipalities are having some risk of landslides, flooding, droughts, and many, many more. We also have 72 indigenous resguardos and also 61 communities from Afro populations. We also have farmers and mestizos, so it's a very diverse territory, very big, also one of the biggest in Colombia too. And just for you also to get like a sense of how is to plan fight Nariño under climate change circumstances. The territory is, as I said before, very diverse. It comprises all the Pacific frame. We have like most of the mangroves areas in Colombia, but also the mountains and the Andes start and enter to Colombia through Nariño. So it's very complex. And also if you add the complexities of vulnerability related to poverty, population living under the poverty line, and also the conflict. I need to mention this because it's also, you know, a very important circumstance if you want to planify territories is to understand the dynamics of the territory. So besides the biological diversity and all this cultural diversity, we also have been facing a lot of vulnerabilities related to conflict and poverty. And in 2016, with this government, the government of Camilo Romero, started its mandate. People prioritized in the government plan and in the development plan the creation of an agency, a secretary that only tackles sustainability and environment issues. So in 2016, the governor, of course, promoted the creation of the Secretary of Environment and Sustainable Development, which in that time was the third one created and at the state level in Colombia. So we also established the formulation and the execution of environmental policies, not only related to climate change, but also to water. So there was like the main priorities of people, because people here in Nariño, they're very active on climate change. It's like they are really like engaged in the territorial dimension of Nariño, and they also feel the impact, of course, very connected to the agrarian and forestry vocation of the department. So this, under this scenario where we already have the Paris Agreement, where we created the Secretary of Environment, where people were prioritizing the water and climate on the plan, because it was like a very diverse process where more than 30,000 people participated. They all prioritized the environment, so this was, you know, very important and exemplar to other states in Colombia. They defined that the necessity for a climate change plan of the territory, and we also received the contributions of 4,000 people and an special assistant of Real. So as Paulina mentioned, we asked for Real to assist us, because it, you know, it's very also complex, not only for the territories, but also for local governments to try to make these plans and planify low emissions territories, resilient territories, understanding that we are having, like, of course, needed support from the national government, and it's like we also don't want to make a process which is only like technical, but it's not engaging people on the field, it's not engaging the local knowledge, and it's not engaging the realities. So we try to make this process a combination between the technical instruments and the technical tools that the national government has, and also a Real assistant provided us with, and also the participation, governance, and strengthening of capacities of local communities in all the 64 municipalities. So with all these contributions of people, we already like have the plan almost ready to present it to the local assembly. So it will be presented as the possibility to have it as a climate change public policy, which will be like the first one at the state level in Colombia. And the contribution of Nariño for the climate change Paris Agreement is the plan, but also the implementation of more than 10 pilot projects that we already developed in different fields. But just to mention that, like, our main purpose with the plan is to guide the department towards a low development, but also a resilient department. Respecting the life, respecting the knowledge, and respecting the vocation of land that people has already defined in its territory. So here are some of the pictures of people like creating their strategies and creating the plan. And just concretely to mention the Real assistant, which was very, very important for us, because it, helped us with three main aspects. Being the first one, to define a clear temporality for the plan, because we were a little bit concerned on, like how many years the plan have to be planified, have to be implemented, with the support of Real and the technical expert that they gave us. We managed to define that it's going to be till the 2035 so it's gotta be aligned also to the national law for climate change in Colombia. Also, the real assistant helped us to connect with other initiatives in mitigation of climate change around the world. So it connected us like with other, like institutes and with other initiatives that are supporting local governments on how to mitigate their emissions and also how to planify their mitigation strategies. And finally, it helped us to reinforce that technical component because we have like, a feedback on what, already has to be like taken into account, align it to the IPCC. Like some technical feedback that helped us to refine our plan, which was, like already formulated with the participation of people. And after the real assistance, we like refined it, like put it into an alignment with the Paris Agreement too. Basically, like that's all our experience with this process. And thank you so much for inviting us to present.
Humana, thank you very much. That was excellent. Since we jumped right in, let me say that Humana Acevedo, you are a climate change expert at the Secretary of Environment and Sustainable Development of the government of Nariño, and Executive Director of Barranquilla Plus 20. That was a really great presentation showing us how this real service actually gets used in practice, and actually had a very, very direct contribution to the efforts in Nariño. And so let me also go back and thank Paulina for your presentation. That was also fantastic. Good framework for understanding the work of the climate help desk and access to these this substantial network of experts. We are moving along in the webinar, and I will now very happily like to turn to the next speaker, Federico Viatico, who is the CTCN Regional Manager for Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as for West and Central Africa. And he focuses on technical assistance for climate change mitigation. Federico will be presenting on CTCN's Technical Assistance Service. So let me then pass it over to you, Federico.
Thank you, Orestes. Hi everyone. Thanks also for joining the webinar and participating in the information coming from the Climate Center, Climate Technology Center and Network. Before to start, just a quick confirmation that you're seeing the full screen of my presentation, and then I can go on with the slides, please. Orestes, so I understand that I can go on then. So
yes, of course, please go ahead.
Right. So here is the mission of the CTCN, being the to accelerate the development or transfer of proper climate technologies at the request of developing countries. In fact, we are very much a country-driven mechanism, and we support both adaptation and mitigation. As you can see by the logos, we are co-hosted by UN Environment and UNIDO. And this is exactly where CTCN is positioned within the COP, the Climate Conventions, under the UNFCCC, and we are a part of the so-called technology mechanism, together with the the technology executive committee, being mandated by the COP to take care of the policy, while the CTCN is the implementing body, so the operative body mandated to provide technical assistance at the request of developing countries. We have our focal points. We have now 160 countries where CTCN focal points or national designated entities are active, typically within Ministry for Environment, but is not a general rule. Now, moving forward, CTCN has adopted a geographical teams distribution since last year, meaning that we have divided our countries in three main, let's say, sub-regions. I myself I'm the coordinator for the purple region, meaning Latin America and the Caribbean, West and Central Africa. Then I share the Africa with another manager who is also responsible for West Asia, and then there is the Asia Pacific. So the idea here is to be close to regions and understand better their technology needs and respond to their requests for technical assistance, but also capacity building and networking. This slides now shows the project cycle of CTCN, so how we are replying to countries. So the first step is when a country puts up a request for technical assistance to CTCN through their ND focal point. Then this request is screened by the CTCN, and of course the ND make sure that the requests he receives, that could be from whatever type of organization, either a university, a private sector company, or a research center, even an NGO. So this is pretty open. So it makes sure that the requests received is in line with the national climate priorities and NDCs, and also TNA process, which is also very important to us. Then the request is processed by CTCN, and so provided it is eligible and prioritized, we start the so-called design phase to develop a response plan, which is the CTCN document to describe the blueprint of the technical assistance, so meaning the work plan. And then there is the implementation phase that can be started after the response plan is signed by both parties, CTCN and the ND, our focal point, being then the contract to be followed during the implementation. Then we have two ways of implementing, either through our consortium members that are part of the CTC, so the Climate Technology Center, are 10 organizations plus UNIDO and UNEP that have been established together with the CTCN. They have already budget belonging to CTCN in their bank account, so we can access to that budget just by sending a letter to them. Otherwise, we use our network, which is our main asset, a network of some 500 organizations, private sector, network, research centers all over the globe that can help us deliver on all the climate technologies taxonomy, which is pretty wide. And then we usually use the UNIDO procurement system. So we put up a tender, and then we receive bids that we evaluate to select the right implementer for the specific climate technology needs. These four are the options, technical assistance options that CTCN is supporting. We have technical assistances up to $50,000. We call them quick response, and we use usually our internal consortium members for the implementation of those. When the request is greater than $50,000 budget, then we go through a bid through our networks, and usually it's up to $250,000. We have also a very fast option called fast technical assistance up to 15K. In this case, when we mobilize experts, and so it's a kind of similar response as to the one presented by the colleagues from CESC, with whom we have already cooperated along these lines. And finally, we're very active with Green Climate Fund, especially through their readiness facility. We have already a pipeline of some 10 ongoing, and we have a pipeline of some 10, 15 already in the making for this year. And in this case, we can also reach a higher budget, but of course, we need the agreement between our focal point, NDE, and the GCF focal point, or NDA, National Designated Authorities. And I think I will be quite brief here because I think I wanted to give just the essential details, but I'm happy to reply to all of your questions if any will arise. So thanks for your attention, and back to the moderator then.
Thank you, Federico. Actually, you have a couple of minutes before the next speaker, and you have a couple of questions in the chat box, which maybe you can answer quickly. The first one relates is from Adisu, who I believe is in Ethiopia. He works in the water sector, and he's wondering, does CTCN support activities related to integrated water resource management, water safety planning, and related issues? There's a second question, which is, which countries are in Europe that you engage? I'm not sure that was covered in your map, but that was the question.
Right. To reply to the first, my answer is yes. We have several technical assistances all over the globe to support water management, water resources. So we have in Latin America now, in Grenada, we have in Asia, in Africa, we have, so this is one of our main topics in adaptation. And to reply to the second question, we have some Balkan countries. For instance, we have been active in Serbia, and also Ukraine is eligible for our support. Basically, all countries eligible for CTCN support are the non-Annex 1 countries, according to the definition of the COP, the Climate Convention. So Annex 1 countries are not eligible for the CTCN support. So then it's easily recognizable even within our website or even the UNFCCC website.
Okay, excellent. I don't see, oh yes, there are. One final question, because you still have a minute. From Rwanda, what will be the requirements for the Ministry of Agriculture from Rwanda to get technical assistance from CTCN?
Well,
maybe you've already covered this in your presentation.
Yes, Rwanda already engaged with us. I met the NDA of Rwanda in a meeting we have organized in Africa, in Equatorial Guinea. So I think, the way to engage with us, it's through the NDE. The list of, the NDE of Rwanda is listed in our CTCN website, so it's quite, all the references are there. So you should get in contact with the NDE and propose activities, and of course feel free to get in contact with myself as well if you want to have already an offline opinion about a potential request for technical assistance that you would like to share with us. But so anyway, I think Rwanda is aware about CTCN, and we are also starting to work together based on a new technical assistance. So feel free to contact the NDE and myself for this.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Federico. That was a really thorough overview of what CTCN offers and an explanation of the process. And it seems like a very direct, practical way of accessing technical expertise and even connecting to a variety of other needs like engaging the GCF. I believe we should move along. We now are into the next presentation of Mr. Toby Couture. And so I think, Federico, you can turn off your video, and as soon as I'm done, then we'll ask Toby, if there he is, to join us. I will simply introduce you, Toby, as the founder and director of E3 Analytics, which is an independent renewable energy consultancy based in Berlin. And you've worked extensively on renewable energy around the world, advising government and policymakers, regulators in more than 40 countries, including Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, and Tunisia. And we are looking forward to hearing your presentation on the Clean Energy Solutions Center Ask an Expert service. So over to you, Toby. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Orestes. And thanks, Jessica, for coordinating this and for the invitation to participate and feature the Clean Energy Solutions Center. I've been working with the CESC for a number of years, probably 6 or 7 years at this stage, on a range of technical assistance requests with governments around the world, in Africa, Latin America, as well as parts of Asia. And I'll try to give a quick overview here of how the Ask an Expert service works, what the basic structure is, and building on some of what Federico said earlier. There is also some partnership happening between some of the different agencies, and of course, as Federico mentioned, there's a chance to continue building that bridge and building on those cooperations in the months and years ahead. So I'll try to pick up on that again at the end of the presentation. So first, a bit of background on the Clean Energy Solutions Center. It's a multilateral initiative, part of the Clean Energy Ministerial, and there's a number of host governments that contribute funding to support the CESC. Increasingly, governments are contributing funds and earmarking that money for specific purposes or for specific regions where technical assistance can be more targeted. There's also been additional support from the US Department of Energy, Power Africa, as well as some foundations. So a wide range of different funding sources, the majority of which come from a few key governments listed here. How does it work? So the Solution Center tries to provide tailored, no-cost advisory support to both national and subnational governments who are trying to implement clean energy policies. There's a focus also on finance and finance-related topics. There's been a number of efforts on and technical assistance requests on climate and climate-related topics. There's also been some supporting gender and gender-specific issues. There's even been some requests on issues like battery recycling and more technical topics like that are a bit niche within the sector, but that are frequently requested by governments. So in this case, I think it was the government of Ghana who was interested in really looking more deeply at the battery recycling question. So wide range of different topics covered. The network of Ask an Expert experts is over 60 experts wide from over 50 countries around the world. I'm originally in Canada, based in Berlin, but there are other experts covering pretty well every corner of the world, providing direct technical assistance as part of the Ask an Expert service. So far, the CESC has responded to over 50 requests from over 90 countries and regional organizations around the world. So fairly broad spectrum and fairly broad reach in terms of individual country support. In addition, the CESC also participates in webinars. I've been part of at least, I would estimate, 8 or 10 different CESC webinars on renewable energy policy, strategy, and finance-related topics. And in total, the CESC has delivered over 300, or it says nearly 300. I think now the number is just over. And there is also a resource library with a number of different curated resources, including some of the technical assistance reports that have been created on these various topics. Quick snapshot of some of the experts. You can see here pictures of a few across the spectrum and a map of the key countries where support has been provided. Now, a few words about the process. Government representatives, typically, this can also be regulators. In some cases, it can even be led by a regional organization. So in some cases, there's been organizations like ECRI or SACRI in Southern Africa can partner with a local government or national government and submit the request on their behalf in order to mobilize that technical assistance. So there are ways for partnerships with local actors and local agencies to also be the requestor, the person actually submitting the technical assistance request. The governments or the representative will, in most cases, go on to the Ask an Expert website, the link for which is provided here, and insert essentially a 1-sentence or 2-sentence description of what their technical assistance request is. Another pathway is to email Vicky Healy, whose email address is here directly. Vicky will then make sure that the right expert within the network is identified to answer that particular technical assistance request. A third pathway is that requests can be submitted via a member of the policy expert team. So that could be someone like myself or David Jacobs or Hugo, someone else from within the network, like Christina, who could directly take that request and say, okay, this is a good candidate for a CSC request, and essentially work with that representative to put the request through the system. And of course, at Solution Center events and other Solution Center Clean Energy Ministerial, SE for All Forum, other major events like that can also be used to help unlock technical assistance support. Typically, the requests are reviewed within 2 working days. The aim of the Clean Energy Solution Center is to be fast and efficient in processing the requests as well as in responding to the requests. So there have been some requests that are as short as a day or 2 of work in total. So very short, very targeted, on-demand request response. Some of the requests can range up to 15 or 20 days of work effort. So there's a fairly broad range, but one of the signature features of the CSC is really to try to provide rapid response, targeted requests for fairly specific needs that fall through the cracks of the current tendering or donor support process. Typically, there's a scoping call and ultimately a matchmaking process to identify the right expert to respond to this request. Much of that is dealt with and managed by Vicky Healy at NREL. So as I was pointing out a few moments ago, there are a few different pathways: short turnaround requests, higher level support, as well as in-depth support, going up to somewhere around 15 days of total technical assistance. In some cases, the CSC even supports country travel to the specific country. In other cases, the CSC partners with other agencies like the World Bank or SE for All or UNIDO to take care of the travel-related component, and the CSC will cover the expert time. So, for example, I was part of a recent training on solar PV integration and distributed PV policy with the government of Nepal. And for that, I flew to Kathmandu, executed the request, delivered the 3-day training in partnership with the World Bank, who then covered the travel cost component. So both the flight and the hotel, essentially. So there are ways for synergies within the various organizations to try to mobilize these kinds of technical assistance and these kinds of trainings. I think that's essentially it from the Clean Energy Solutions Center side, and I think I've taken up my time allocation. So at this stage, I think I'll stop there and open up to questions. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you again for your attention and for being here, and look forward to future opportunities to discuss further.
Thank you very much, Toby. We're a little over time, but I'm just checking here. We have one question related to whether it's possible to receive support on battery recycling. I haven't been able to keep up with all the questions. I think that's the one for you that we received. And this is from Ghana. So to receive additional support specifically on that topic, or to have access to, yeah, so I think absolutely the Clean Energy Solutions Center has already an expert identified within the network specifically focusing on that topic, who has responded to the request for Ghana. So if there are further needs on that, then by all means, feel free to reach out either directly via the Ask an Expert platform
or directly to Vicky Healy for follow-up. And again, the only thing that is needed to ultimately kick off the request is a short sentence or two describing the technical assistance request. So, you know, something along the lines of, I'm writing from the government of Liberia and I'm interested in technical assistance on the following topic. And then Vicky takes care of the rest.
All right, excellent. Thanks so much. And we may get more questions later, although we already have quite a number of questions to get back to in the final round. Thank you very much, Toby. And I will turn my video back on. And I apologize, it's become a little dark here because here in Korea, it is actually 11:15 p.m. and the lights in my office have automatically turned off. So I'm improvising a little bit with some additional lighting. Now, thank you again, Toby. Let me turn to the next presenter, our final presenter, Serafine Hüsling, if I pronounced that correctly, I hope so. Serafine is the Program Management Officer at the Climate and Clean Air Coalition Secretariat in Paris. She has 17 years of project and program management experience related to climate change, mitigation, and adaptation with the World Bank and UN environments. And Serafine will be presenting the CCAC Expert Assistance Service. So without further ado, let me turn it over to you, Serafine.
Thank you very much, and you you pronounce my name very well. I know it's a bit of a challenge. It's a mix between French and German. Yes, I'm very pleased to actually present one of our services under the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. Basically, I don't see. Sorry, I'm not sure I see if you can see my presentation.
We just saw it for a moment, and then it seems to have gone. Now we're back looking at Google, a web browser.
Oh, okay. How can I get back to my presentation? Okay, I think I'm back. It's back now, no?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so this is one specific service of the Climate and Clean Air Coalition for those like a global partnership of governments, NGOs, and intergovernmental organizations short-lived climate pollutants. So those include black carbon, methane, tropospheric ozone, and HFCs. And so, and here you have like an objective, but our overall objective is really to support partners and stakeholders, enhance and implement national policies and action plans to reduce short-lived climate pollutants. So this includes actively facilitating peer-to-peer engagement and to commit to strong action to substantially reduce those short-lived climate pollutants emissions at a global scale. So at the CCAC, we're also managing a trust fund. So the CCAC is hosted by UN Environment. And so within this Secretariat Services, we have this trust fund with which we are supporting a number of activities. We have 11 initiatives. Actually, we have just now a 12th one. And 7 of them and 4 more on cross-cutting issues. And so each of these initiatives is managed by a number of partners. And so that we're really looking at agriculture sector, at bricks, at HFC, cooling and refrigeration, oil and gas. And so within those initiatives, we are supporting specific actions to actually promote policies to reduce those short-lived climate pollutants. So we have this very strong focus on really like fostering policies, but we also have within the CCAC a very strong focus on really enhancing this political leadership to take more action on reducing short-lived climate pollutants and to also take more integrated approaches between climate and clean air. And the other big pillar of the CCAC is really based on science. So and the CCAC was very much launched or developed thanks to a very strong scientific case that showed that by reducing short-lived climate pollutants, it has the potential to reduce the temperature increase by 0.6 degree by 2050, but it also has the potential to reduce premature deaths of 2.4 million people a year because of air pollution, and it has also significant benefits for agriculture. Could you please move to the next slide? Okay, so the Solution Center is one of our services, and the objective is really to facilitate access to solution-oriented resources such as guidelines and tools, but also webinars and training, but also to develop to support the development of solution-oriented resources. So here on our Solution Center, we also provide access to available knowledge on SLCPs, and we're also about sharing solutions and connecting among the CCAC network. And one of our particular services here is to also facilitate peer-to-peer exchanges and to matchmake with relevant experts to respond to requests related to SLCP from policymakers and civil servants. So now I'm going to go more into depth on this expert assistance advice. So if we could move to the next slide, please. So the expert assistant advice is through this assistance or through this service, we are responding to requests from policymakers, civil servants, both at regional, national, and subnational levels, working to reduce black carbon, methane, and HFCs in specific sectors as part of an overall mitigation planning and implementation strategy. So the idea is to connect through the service to an extensive network of professionals for consultation and advice on a wide range of short-lived climate pollutant issues and policies. And such advice could mean, for example, to help explore the potential or feasibility of technological solutions or mitigation measures, or to identify possible funding or technical assistance resources, to help with developing project proposals. So here, for example, for the Green Climate Fund, or also like in the context of the GEF, and to assist or provide training for the application of certain tools, and also provide inputs for policy development. So this service can be accessed through our website, and so those requests can be submitted online at any time, and they will also be responded within like 10 days at the latest. So if you could just move to the next slide. So here you just see that within this expert assistance, we have a very large pool of experts. So we have now more than 50 experts, and those are experts from those sectors that are relevant for short-lived climate pollutants. So we have experts from the agriculture sector, from bricks production, from HFC, oil and gas, but also health experts and experts that have expertise in how to access the relevant finance mechanisms, such as GCF, and we have also experts on strategic planning. So we have one initiative that is specifically targeting on helping governments to develop plans and to come up with more integrated assessment on air quality and climate. So here you can see that, so basically we are providing here some matchmaking between some of those experts and those specific requests. And also, if you from your networks would like to nominate experts, we very much welcome that. So just to give you an idea of some of those requests, what they look like and what they led to. So for example, we received some requests to help Uruguay to develop their regulations to limit black carbon from heating. We also received requests from Mongolia for the development of a youth outreach project on air quality. We received a request from Vietnam to finalize their new livestock law. So these are some examples where you see how what type of requests we receive, and we were able to respond to by linking up to our pool of experts. And so the type of response we can provide is either like direct expert advice, but it can also be through helping to participate in certain workshops or events. And yes, so here you have some an overview of some of those solutions that we helped to realize. And now I'm already at my last slide because I know the time is running. And actually, I'm here just jumping in for my colleague Valentin Foltescu, who's coordinating this service. So if you have any more specific questions, please don't hesitate to contact Valentin. And also, you are also very welcome to contact me if you have any more general question on the CCAC and the initiatives that are supported by the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Serafine. A really wonderful overview of a very important service covering these high global warming gases, and a very clear process for accessing this expertise. We are now reaching the final round, the Q&A period, and what we might even consider the lightning round. I'll ask all of the presenters to please activate your videos so that we can your camera so that we can see you. There's a little feedback. Maybe keep your microphone on mute unless you're planning to speak. And I think what we can do, again, I apologize if it's not so easy to see me because of the lighting here. We can address some of the initial questions that we received from the listeners, and then go around maybe one by one very quickly. We can go in the order of the presentations by those who were representing the specific services. And I'll just start with a few questions that we received, and I'll even kick it off with, well, let me just kick it off with a few questions all at once. If you can maybe each touch on one or all of these. I don't know if you need to address all of these. There was a question, what makes somebody an expert? In other words, how are these people qualified and included on the Expert Connects or various expert services? And second question we received, have we ever received, or any of the services received, a request which were not possible to fill, maybe because the expertise was not available or because of some other problems? And are there any hidden fees? The question is, are these all free of charge? But I guess the question, it's really, are these truly all free, or are there any unexpected costs that might come up? Why don't we start with that round of questions, and I'll turn to Inwu first as the first presenter.
Great, thank you, Orestes. Well, just maybe addressing the last question first. There, at least with the Expert Connect service, and I'm sure with other services, if there will be any financial costs, which is in very rare case, we do communicate that well beforehand. So no, there are no hidden fees. Now, if you want, for example, somebody to travel so that they can give a workshop, there are fees, but all of that, including any allocation of financing, including by us, is discussed beforehand. When we cannot source an expert or find an expert from our roster, we do reach out. You will see that in many of our expert service websites, there's a link to other services that you can reach out to, but we also do it for you. The case study that I have given was on Mongolia, where we have reached out to our friends at LESGP and CTCN, and they have kindly helped source an expert so that we could work with them. And I don't quite recall the first question, but maybe I just give it to our other presenters to answer. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, with that, let's move over to Ursula. And the first question was, what makes somebody an expert?
Well, I would say like an expert should be somebody who can find proper solutions, and that is something which also depends on the communication with the respective partners then. So because I think it's a kind of collaboration issue as well. So we don't have, let's say like we are working on tailor-made solutions for your specific cases. And in that regards, it's always a process, but we have good experiences and experts at hand in their respective areas where they have expertise, and that should do the trick then together with you. I cannot hear you now.
jumping around screen to screen. Have there been cases where it wasn't possible to fill a request? And then we'll move over to Paulina.
Okay, I think at the moment there hasn't been cases for that yet. We are looking forward to be challenged in this regard. So far at the moment it's more a matter of how urgent the case has to be solved. So we are a small team willing to support, but it would be good not to have something where you want to have the answer in 1 or 2 days.
Okay, thank you. So Paulina, what can you say about these questions? Are there hidden costs? How do you find your experts? How are they qualified? And are you able to fulfill all requests? You can put it that way. Paulina, we can't hear you at the moment. I don't know if you're muted. Should we, maybe it's not working for the moment? Yeah, we can't hear you.
I think you should hear me now. No. Okay, great. So there are no hidden costs. So from the beginning until we receive the service until the end, we don't charge nothing for that. So this is really a free service. What makes the expert a real expert is a very good question. So I can only speak from our experience. So we have like a database. So we work with experts. We try to work with national experts because they have the great expertise. They know the country the best and know the problems and the issues and hopefully also the solutions. We also look at the university background, also the years of experience and where they have been working for. So where the request comes, we try to look for an expert who can really fit best to the request.
Okay. Excellent. Any extra costs?
Nope.
Okay.
At all.
None at all. That's always good to hear. Federico, do you have thoughts on those questions?
Yeah, I mean, an expert is somebody whose background is recognizably presenting specificity on one climate technology from CTCN perspective, because we are focusing on technology, and so we need somebody who can give quick responses. Of course, in the case we are using an independent expert, a single person for delivering our services. In the case of bigger size technical assistance, is like $200,000-$300,000, then we issue a tender to select and to go through the background of companies, organizations. That is not for a single expert. And in general, so far we have always found the right expertise to reply to countries' requests. One main issue could arise in terms of timing, because sometimes if there is a need for an independent expert, they may not be available for the exact moment in which the request has been filed to CTCN, and that could be a time concern. And but usually the costs are agreed with the country, so that there is usually no surprise, and they are contracted, so on a number of days. If there is any delay for some reason, so we usually anyway, we don't charge countries on this for sure.
Okay, excellent overview. So I'm not sure if Toby is still on the call. So why don't we turn to Seraphine? Your thoughts on those questions?
Thank you. There's no much to add at being in the end of the line. So I kind of share also Paulina's view on experts, and in the CCAC, since we are very much founded on the scientific case, and so I think this is really one of the strong pillars of the CCAC. And so we have also the scientific advisory panel that guides us and gives us updates on the latest developments with 15 renowned scientists. So the other question on the fees, no, there are no hidden fees. I mean, this is one of the services, and so now the support we provide normally translate into maximum support of up to 20K. So just to give an idea, and this is really like to support in consultancies or some participation in technical workshops, but this is about the range of response. And then until now, I think we had some requests that were maybe not so relevant or that we could not respond to because they were not specifically about short-lived climate pollutants. So this is, there are two important things that this is really, that requests should address specifically short-lived climate pollutants, black carbon, methane, and should also be from public entities, so it can be cities and governments. So this is other two important features. But so far we have, I think when we couldn't respond, we were able to kind of link up with the relevant institutions or networks. And we are still relatively young, so we are really like, and we have resources to provide. So we very much welcome requests, and we are very open for that. Thank you.
Okay, Serafine, thank you. And since you were the last one talking, we can go in the reverse order with the next set of questions. I know we're going over time a little bit. It's not uncommon for the webinar, so if it's possible to for the speakers at least to stay online for a little longer, and we can just address a few more questions in the interest of getting more information shared about these services. Toby's there. Okay, why don't we jump to the next set of questions though, if that's okay. Or Toby, did you have something quick you wanted to add?
Sure, I'll just jump in quickly to give the CSC side on this. I think these are all great questions. I'll just go through them quickly. I was trying to get in. It looks like there's only 6 slots for video. So someone had to drop off in order for me to come in. So that's why I wasn't able to answer in queue. First, who's an expert? Most of the CSC has grown organically over time. It's one of the sort of longest established of these no-cost technical assistance providers. And originally it started with experts at the National Renewable Energy Lab and people within the renewable energy community who were recognized experts in their field. So these are mostly people with a large publication history, master's degree or PhD, who were from the beginning recognized as experts in their field. And as the topic list has grown, taking on topics like clean cooking and topics like gender, the CSC has made an effort to try to identify, based on peer review, based on people's sort of publication history, to identify who their experts are who can answer these types of requests in issues like gender, clean cooking, and so forth. So there's sort of an organic process to vet and accredit or accept new experts within the CSC team, so to speak. What happens when they can't be identified or can't be mobilized? I think the only case that I can think of where that has been the case concretely is where there's it's for a high income country. So for example, we had a request a few years ago from France, and it was decided that, well, the CSC should have there should be an income cutoff that essentially says, okay, that high income countries can support their own policy and technical assistance needs, and the CSC should not be the sort of first resort for those kinds of things. So there was an income threshold there per GDP per capita that was applied in that case. But otherwise, efforts are made to find an expert within the network, and if there isn't an expert within the CSC network, then the CSC reaches out to partner organizations like the Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves, or people at ECRI regional organizations, and others. And with regard to fees, CSC is, much like many of the others, is no cost, no hidden fees, fully and completely funded by the platform. So there's no cost to the government.
Okay, excellent. We've been receiving some more questions. Thank you very much, Toby, and to all the speakers. And so these are kind of interesting. because we still have maybe 10 questions that we certainly won't get to all of them tonight. Let me just see. There's some questions related to the specific kinds of services that are available, and maybe what I'll do is allow each speaker to jump up, to indicate that you have something to say if it applies to your particular service. Are there services related to green finance, green financial services development that could be provided to private sector banks, for example? Are there services related to green economy modeling, and what kind of expertise would be needed for that? And a third question related to that, are there services specifically related to plastics pollution and oceans, marine environments? Let me leave it at that and see if there are responses from among the speakers. And I'll turn off my video so that any other speakers who are not able to turn on their video can do so. Okay, Inwu.
Great. Thank you, Orestes. I just want to quickly answer the green finance part. Currently, the Expert Connect service could help policy-based or policy processes, although I do want to note the Green Growth Knowledge Platform, where the Expert Connect service is based, will be expanding to the financial sector. So there will be a green finance platform launching this July, and I follow us for more information and updates. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So no takers on other finance support?
Yeah. So
okay, great.
Yeah, so the CSC does and actively support a range of different financial requests. I've been part of a few different projects personally on tariff calculation, on power purchase agreement, due diligence, essentially looking at tariff and PPA design questions. There have been a number of requests that have a more financial capacity building or financial modeling component. So the CSC does have a growing focus area and team in that.
Okay, very good. Paulina, Federico, Ursula, anything to add?
I can add something on this. Also, CTCN has received a few requests on the topic, and also this is something that probably should be highlighted, is the fact that CTCN is targeting the first part of the project financing cycle, meaning the enabling environment. The important thing is that a request to CTCN be focused on a specific climate technology, but then our mission is to help countries to access bigger funding, so including green financing. So we have received requests also along the lines that Toby was mentioning, like for power purchase agreements. Some of our requests, for instance, one in Chile, has facilitated the proposal to the Green Climate Fund for a green financing bank, for a green bank project. That so we have prepared the way for that. So definitely we are also active in this sphere.
I could add maybe something on the plastics pollution issue. So knowing that the German Ministry for Environment also just recently initiated a new project in this regards, I'm happy to contact you with the colleagues and to see whether there is a chance that you also could team up or become one of their partners who specifically work on policies and I think also on technical matters for plastic pollution avoidance.
Excellent, thank you. And Paulina, did you have anything you wanted to add? One question I guess we didn't have addressed is the question of how did I put it? Green economy modeling, economic modeling.
Sorry, I don't know.
So it's okay. So Paulina, did you have anything to add on any of the topics?
I think I would have to elaborate a little bit more on the request regarding the development of the green
Sure.
finance services. So would be interesting to know if it's linked somehow to the developing country government, or if it's like a request really from a private bank. So at this stage, it's difficult to say, but we are supporting developing country governments and NGOs and or other organization. But if this request is only from a private bank, that would be maybe hard for us to work on.
Sure, thank you. And I think it's fair to say that that if someone is interested in a particular service, just reach out, find out, ask the questions. The GGKP is a clearinghouse in the sense of many of these partnerships of these platforms already, but the idea is that we're all working more closely together anyway, and if one particular service doesn't have that expertise, then we can help to find that elsewhere. And the services are broadening over time. I think we, some of them are very new, but it seems like, but there's a gradual growth to provide additional expertise over time. I recognize that we're pretty much out of time, I would say, at this point, and I haven't been able to keep up with all of these. I think we have been getting additional questions, but it would be nice if the GGKP webinar organizers could collect some of these, and then maybe we can respond separately if that's possible. Or otherwise, participants who joined the webinar today should be able to reach out to the individual services and follow up with additional questions and any other issues that may be helpful. So if it's all right with everybody, I'd like to thank all of our speakers and thank the organizers very much for pulling this together. Thank you to our sponsors with the GET program, and so the Secretariat, of course, for the GGKP pulling this all together, and of course, what makes this most interesting and relevant are the participants. So I'd also like to make sure that we thank all of you who have joined this webinar and stayed with us for now almost 2 hours to learn about these important services and how we can be of assistance to you. So we hope that this is the start of a dialogue and continued discussion and engagement, and look forward to following up as time progresses. So again, thank you, everybody. We're very pleased to have run this webinar today, and we look forward to staying engaged going forward. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Excellent, Orestes. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
for
everyone.
the opportunity.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening and good day.
Bye. Bye-bye.